All of them.
Okay,
All righty, let's get started.
I hope you gave a good speech.
We called on you, but you were nowhere to be found.
No, I wasn't gonna be there.
Please give me.
They know that.
They know that.
All right,
They
all
knew that a
right.
long time ago.
We'll get started here on our work session. Today is Monday, April 14th. It's the work session of the Commissioners of Weaver County. I'm Commissioner Sharon Bolos. I have with me Commissioner Gage Brewer and Commissioner Jim Harvey. And others in the room who will be identified when we get to our next agenda item. Agenda item 1 is a discussion and or action for approval of minutes for the commission work session held on March 31st, 2025.
Madam Chair, motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 2, Surveyor's Office proposed code updates. Steve Collier, Scott Park, Liam Keogh is not here. We have Chris Crockett and we have Stephanie Ebert. Steve.
Alrighty, I was feeling a little bit like Bahi, so I only made one extra copy, sorry.
That's okay.
He hates printing on paper.
Hey,
Just
so do
hates it.
I.
But hopefully my voice will get us through this. So there are 4 updates that we've been working on over the past while, just some are small, some are significant, but first one that's small, I'll just go list by list. On this first page here, you see per sheet.
No, I don't.
No, I don't see
I
it.
don't see it. No,
Look to your left.
there's only one copy. I'll just have to.
You can see it.
That's okay.
It's
Tell
not.
Bonnie when we do a 2-to-1, but no way. That he, 2 pieces of paper might have swung the vote.
I could give you my copy, but
I hate to see it go down for lack.
No, gee, next time, pay the
Well,
3.2
that's an old
cents.
school, you gotta learn.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
with him,
okay.
just for the record. If I wasn't sitting in the middle, I would give it up.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And after we talk about fee stuff, then I'll give you my copy. I won't need it, but. So for final local entity plat reviews, thanks
Right
to IFDs, which we're all unfortunately familiar with. They've created a situation where we really are going to have to change from just charging $350 per plat reviewed to $350 per sheet. The difference is every other final local entity plat is bound to one contiguous area. They no longer are. And well, when we have an IFD that contains several different areas across an entire valley, we've got to be able to charge what it costs to review the plat.
That makes
So-
sense to me.
Yep.
So that one's a pretty small
Don't
change.
like it, but it makes sense.
We could not have IFDs.
Well,
So explain to me, though, why are their IFDs not recorded up front when they record the original plat? So they come in and do their subdivision, you're saying they've got, so multiple IFDs,
So what I'm talking about with the different areas.
yeah,
Is say you have one developer that's working on several different developments.
right,
Or development across different areas. He can create one IFD because there's not a government body to say yay or nay to any of it.
right,
He can create it and state code simply says it doesn't have to be contiguous area. And it doesn't have to come at the same time as they do the subdivision plat. All there really is that has to be is 100% of landowners have to sign the petition.
got it, yeah. Okay,
Without going into other issues, procedural issues that we have with IFDs, it just that one from the get-go for
do
us.
me a favor, just for the record, so when you say IFD, the people who are listening in and are not familiar with the acronym know what that is.
So the IFD is the Infrastructure Financing District. Kind of a spin-off from the Public Infrastructure Financing District, except no longer allows the governing body to approve or dictate anything.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, so item 2. For subdivision review fees, we are finding that our review expenses. Or our review fees are not covering our expenses, so we started looking into. How we can fix that. Essentially. As initial just check, I looked at the 2017 proposed documents and just updated the hourly rates to the exact number of hours that were assigned there. And sorry, Commissioner Bolos has a copy.
Sure. Would you like me to share my screen that has that?
Oh, yeah, you can pull that up. Scott's helped me with this one.
Sounds a little small.
Yeah,
Well,
it
is
doesn't
there no
even,
link to the bottom part of this?
so, yes, we'll go back to that page, but
Okay,
yeah. The red part here is what I'm proposing to change, but this is kind of the background.
I don't have the Zoom, so I have to, it takes me a minute.
Oh, gotcha.
If I can borrow the mouse, I can.
So while that's coming up, essentially what we want to propose is still under what our cost is. But it says, I wasn't willing to propose anything higher. What the current fee is $400 plus 25 per lot. Or 50 per condo unit. What we propose to change to is $500 plus $50 per lot or condo, not have that separation between lot and condos. With that, we would also make an adjustment to the plat change fee. That would be essentially half of the cost, half of the initial review fee. But again, those are at final plat stage that really should almost never happen.
what would it take for you to get to where you're covering your costs? And why are you willing to do that? And why are you laughing?
Cause that's the same question he asked me.
I did,
So. Let me walk through. Thought process here. So before considering raising fees, I've worked for the past about year and a half to try to streamline our review process as much as possible to decrease the burden of costs from the labor side, from our side, to streamline that as much as we can. Having gotten to where I think is about the best we can get hours wise per review, we end up a bit short. We've got this sheet now that shows. Let's see, just starting.
Let me scroll up, or where are we?
Yeah, let's go up to the top.
Okay.
So if we look through, this just shows the breakdown. So the hourly cost looks like across the board, most of this is gonna be $65 an hour. That's a survey 2 expense. So for the preliminary plat process, the cost, now I would say the potential cost is about $200 for us. We don't do much with the preliminary plat. And with that, almost half of that is an upon request kind of expense. So I think $100 there for the preliminary plat review is just fine. Again, that allows us just enough to help out where there may be questions from planning. For the final plat, that's where the vast majority of our review
So
is.
just to clarify, so to answer your question, the cost is 195 estimated. He's asking to bill 100. So just about half of what it costs. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Thank
Final
you.
plat.
So final plat. So this all adds up to be, we would say, our estimation here is 715 plus 4875, close to 50 per lot or unit on the hourly breakdown expense. And what we're proposing is 500 and then plus 50. Not terribly different, but it is some lower. If that's the void that we're looking at, the difference.
so that answers part of my question, which is what's the difference? My next question is why? And who bears that burden if the requester isn't paying for that?
The rest of the expense would be a general fund expense, I guess, we would be covering that cost.
So we use the recorder's fees, the recorder surveyors together because we have the state auditor has a restriction on how those development fees and how the recorder fees are used. So we offset essentially the recorder fees because the recorders make more money than they spend. The surveyor spends more money than it makes, and so we use those as an offset. And any money that's left over at the end is restricted for those purposes. And so it's not truly just general fund taxpayer dollars, but it is. Like, if we didn't spend this money here, we would have more money for surveying equipment, we would have more money to redo the recorders program and stuff like that, but it's not technically just general fund dollars, but it is.
Thanks for
Okay, then I'm getting there because, it sounds then like the burden is, still lies with the requester. It just might be being spent on one side or the other.
Well, other than I'm paying, when I record, refinance of my mortgage, that's now being used to offset the cost of a developer completely somewhere else that's getting a cheaper review. So it's not like it's one to one, but it kind of relates, they kind of overlap, but it's not.
And that one, that expense is dictated at this point from the state.
Yeah,
So. Okay, keep going.
All right. So the reason for not wanting to go higher, essentially is we start to approach the threshold where the review expense from the county reviewing agencies gets awfully close to the expense of creating the plat from the surveyor that they're contracted with. And that's not a territory I really want us to get into. So I'm trying to be as aware of both sides of this coin as possible with being reasonable with people. Both sides, whatever sense that makes. Anyway, those are the figures I'd like to propose. If we need to adjust to cover everything that's accounted for in here, we can, but with hesitation.
Okay, is there more? Look at
That's-
some other little flags, or do you want?
Yeah, that's the gist of the subdivision review
Portion.
fee change.
Well, let's stop there then. You have any questions about that? Commissioner Fuller?
Well, I'm gonna take you for what you say on your cost. So again, you're the one that knows that, so. But I would just caution you, again, I think you hit it on the head. The closer you come to approximate what they can do in the private industry, you'll see more. Well, you saw what happened 2 years ago. When the legislator said, look, you inspectors are taking too long, you're charging too much.
Yes,
You've got this and it goes, so you will see legislation that'll say, take you guys out of the equation, which means you now lay people off. So that's the next step if you keep going this direction.
right.
You understand that?
Yep.
In fact, I've already had a couple legislators talk to me about that. And you've got home builders, you got realtors saying all these fees, all they do, they get passed on to the new home buyer.
Yes, they
So
do.
let's be honest, who pays these? Or
The home buyer.
the kids and the grandkids that wanna buy homes. So you need to keep that in mind because a lot of, well, you know, the big fat developer's gonna pay for it. No, the big fat developer's not
They
paying
just
for
pass
it.
it on.
Do we have to use the word fat?
Well, okay, let's say very well endowed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Commissioner Harvey?
Yeah, it's, I was feeling the same thing, you know, but I trust your work and you understand was where you're headed and the sites, I think it seems reasonable. You've put a lot of thought and energy into this and I don't have any issues.
Okay. We don't have to agree on that. Believe me, I understand that all these costs get passed on. But on the
I-
flip side, there are people paying for services they're not receiving because they're being subsidized.
Yeah.
So that's where I am.
I will stir this argument a little bit more with my last item. I
Okay.
probably should have put that next, but I didn't.
Like, all
Okay.
you need to do is stir the argument.
Yeah, sorry.
Stir it up.
Okay. The blue tab,
Okay,
and of course, I put
Blue
it on the
tab.
wrong side of the paper, so you have to flip the next page after. This is a really simple correction. Some years ago, the signature block to be placed on subdivision plats for the county surveyor's office was changed, and then that was probably in 2017. Sometime between now and then, the section 106 subdivision code area was kind of reconfigured and the old language was resurrected and put back in here, so now we have conflicting language. This is just to make the 106 section read the same language as it does in 45. So, not anything too life earth shattering there. The last item is for interlocal agreements. There's two things that I want to adjust in these. One, currently, we are with our subdivision reviews for unincorporated for incorporated cities that we've got agreements with. There's 6 of them right now. We do monument improvement agreements where we hold escrow, collect a fee, and provide materials for and help make sure these monuments, centerline monuments, get built for subdivision developments. There's a number of steps in that we would like to get out of. So what we're proposing is to essentially remove our monument improvement agreement services and have the cities oversee the construction of centerline monuments for their subdivisions with their public work processes. Most of the cities that I've talked to said, oh yeah, our public works was already doing that. They kind of are, which is why we have that process, is because they kind of do. The one thing that I do want to still offer them is to be able to verify the location, which would be, we would no longer collect an escrow and have to monitor the construction for 3 years and then release that escrow. And we wouldn't have to obtain monument resources for that and then supply them to them. Kind of simplifies some things there. Instead, we would simply be able to go out and verify the location of the monument upon the city's request. And that would be $150 per monument that they ask us to go check. Essentially, the idea is we want to provide for them what they're not able to provide for themselves, rather than just stepping in and trying to do it all.
So do you need an interlocal agreement for that, or can that just be a fee that pay the fee and services available?
So we have interlocal agreements with the 6 cities, and what I'm just looking to amend that agreement. So that's something that's dictated in there.
If that's the only service that you're gonna provide now, do you need an agreement? Or could it just be a service we offer for $150?
That I don't know. The interlocal agreements thing has been something that the office has gone through for quite a while. I know back in the early 2000s, they had some, so I don't know if we've just followed suit there or if that is something necessary for that. Any thoughts, Chris?
Just texting someone in my office.
No, you're fine. I know Liam had planned to be here, but he had a meeting that was gonna
What's the
overlap.
question about the interlocals?
Yeah, so for us to provide review services and check the location of a centerline monument, is it necessary for incorporated cities within Weaver County? Is it necessary for us to execute interlocal agreements to be able to provide those services?
Yes, it's a good idea, especially if you're going to be receiving compensation. Are you?
Yes.
Yeah,
So yes, absolutely.
so it can't just be part of our fee schedule? That was my question. Why do we have to have an agreement? Why can't they just come and say we need this done?
Are you going to do it for every city that comes in, for anyone?
I don't know. That's a question for Steve.
I would
No, just for the cities that, well, to date, it's been for the cities that don't have any contracted surveyors. Essentially, we're trying to help them do what they otherwise can't do.
all but the ones that have them themselves.
I
What
mean,
you're
we
saying.
do this for various types of municipal services within our local agreements. If there's any differences between the needs of one city as opposed to the other, I would say we do it through an interlocal agreement. If it's going to just be for a couple of cities and not just any city that wants to come in, I probably would not put it on our fee schedule. Especially if we're going to be negotiating with the Ogden Valley, if there's more costs associated with having to go out to different locations, you might want to have a different fee schedule to
Okay.
negotiate that.
Okay, yeah, I don't have a problem with
Makes
the
sense.
agreement. I just didn't want to make it more complicated than it needs to be, so.
That
Okay,
was a good question. So that's the first change that we want to do. The other change is just to amend the compensation to match what's done for Weaver County. Now, the question that's gonna come up is, well, we want to make sure that they pay the full cost of what we're doing. And in the review, the issue that I run into is, as far as I can tell, and I've looked at this a lot, 95, because I can't say 100%, because then we go into unreal territory. 95%, the vast majority of subdivision reviews that we do for or for cities fall within our fee schedule. We do a review, they adjust the changes, and we approve it and move on, and we're done. And we really don't use up very much time, and we lie within the cost that it takes. For unincorporated areas, we don't often run into that situation, and that's where we run. That's why I've focused so much on trying to make sure that I have gotten my ducks in a row and smoothed out the process as best as possible. There's just other steps involved with unincorporated subdivision reviews that is, I guess we don't have some of the complexities when we're doing a city review. So that's kind of that's where I was gonna flip our
Okay.
argument on its head before.
Okay, so within those who are using those services, does it even out? If you're proposing 500 versus 715?
So,
Within the scope of the individuals you're serving, are we collecting enough in fees to cover your costs?
no. So the interlocal, the city reviews are a few in a year versus
Okay,
120 in a
okay,
year.
that answers my question.
So I would like them to be the same rate. That simplifies all our billing situations and whatnot. I certainly don't want the city ones to be at a lower rate than the county reviews. But yeah, we mulled over that a little bit too.
Comments, questions? No. Okay,
Nope.
alrighty, thank you,
All right, that's all my 4 items. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Apologize, Liam couldn't be here. He's advising the career service council right now.
That's okay. Hey,
Thanks, Steve.
and how close are we to 1:30? Cause I'm gonna sit down in that
Oh,
one too.
Okay, well, you're welcome to stay if you want.
Yeah, if you wanna hang out.
Yeah, well, I'll stick around.
Okay,
Otherwise, you're gonna have to watch me hobble.
okay,
Okay.
all right, I think Stacy's the one online, you wanna send the others in, Stacy?
I can go grab them if you'd like.
Okay, thanks, Scott.
Sit down this one too, just for fun.
I think I'm gonna trade seats for this one.
Oh, you got a full.
Hey, right on.
Going for the fly on the wall.
You're on the line.
I know.
Two places at the same time.
You are online.
Like,
Yes, I am. Yeah, I'm just, I got between both.
To this thing.
Oh, Ricky has one of those.
It's the thing that does nothing because everything.
That's perfect.
Huh.
And we're gonna pull your presentation up right now.
IT about.
Okay, Jeremy, and
Sarah, you can sit right here. You're welcome to.
Okay, item 3 on our agenda, discussion regarding Adams CRA Amendment, Stephanie Russell. It's Sarah Neese.
Hello, good morning.
Good
Or
morning.
afternoon.
Afternoon.
We are gonna give you a brief presentation on the amending the interlocal agreement for the Adams CRA. Ogden City has met with our Economic Development Finance Committee. Everyone's comfortable with this presentation and these recommendations. But we obviously would, you guys have the final say. So Sarah's gonna give you a little bit of an update on what we're looking at as it relates to the amendments. And then we can have some discussion, answer questions and see what next steps are.
Okay, Sarah?
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for your time this afternoon. Like Stephanie mentioned, we're proposing an amendment to the budget for the Adams Community Reinvestment Area. Maybe. Here it goes. All right. So this CRA, we adopted the project area plan and budget back in 2018. And really the vision for this project area is to create a vibrant transition from Ogden's downtown core up into our East Central neighborhood. So we see this area as a great opportunity to bring in some new housing, support the renovation and reuse of historic buildings, make sure that we have efficient parking both for this area and the adjacent downtown core, and then just continue to grow employment in the tax base in this CRA as well. We've seen some really exciting progress in this project area over time. If you've been up through this area recently, it's markedly different from how it was back in 2018 when we started the project area. Some of the notable projects that have been completed in the area include the Monarch, the renovation of the historic Peary Lofts just across the street there, the Dumpke Arts Plaza, and then some great new housing projects too. So the Stonehill Homes and the new townhomes over on 24th Street are both within this project area as well. And we're excited to continue bringing in new types of housing and very high quality housing as well.
And that's where you had that extreme home makeover. I
Yep,
think.
just across the street from the Stonehill.
Remember that
Homes. Yeah.
extreme home makeover? I
That
do.
was amazing.
Yep.
The speed that they did that at just is mind blowing.
Yeah. I know I was there at 3 o'clock in the morning on one of them. 4:30 on the other.
So there are also a lot of projects that are in the pipeline for this area. And I would say there are some projects in the pipeline today that weren't necessarily anticipated when we set up this project area back in 2018. One of those is the Forest Service building, which the RDA recently purchased from GSA. And we're looking at converting that to kind of a creative live work environment, working with Give Group that'll include a combination of housing and artist space. We've also got the what we call here the First Security Bank building, but really this is now the Cache Valley Bank building across the street from y'all, and the Bigelow Hotel. And so there's some really iconic historic buildings within this district, and we want to make sure that we're planning appropriately for their renovation and for these buildings to continue contributing to our community for a long time to come. There are also a lot of new housing opportunities that are in the pipeline for the Adams CRA. The project that you see at the bottom right there is a new market rate apartment project that's being proposed just off 26th and Ave. So it sits kind of behind the Utah Power and Light building there. We have a couple different opportunities that we've looked at in the neighborhood as well for some new for sale townhome projects. And we're excited about that opportunity to bring more homeownership opportunities into the CRA as well. And then continue to look at how we can make our parking more efficient up in the CRA as well. So because we have such a strong pipeline of projects, including some of which will require support to be financially feasible, we're proposing an amendment to the overall budget for the Adams CRA. The budget for this project area was pretty lean when we started out. It was about 10.8 million, of which 8 million was available for development. The remainder is set aside for housing and then for administrative costs. So the bulk of that is tied up with existing commitments or projected future expenses with some of those completed projects that we already highlighted. The amendment that we're proposing, we're looking at an actual increase in the investment projected for the Adams CRA. Initially, we were projecting about $95 million worth of investment. Where we're sitting today, we think that's going to be more like 133 million. And with that anticipated increase, we're proposing to increase the CRA budget from 10.8 million to 28.5 million. We intend to continue the CRA term through 2044. This is one by state statute. We did do a 2-year COVID extension on this one. And we're proposing to extend the county out just for those 2 additional years to bring it in line with that term. And then recognizing that we're requesting this budget increase, we want to make sure that we're also planning for pass-through to the different taxing entities. So currently, the county's participation in the CRA is at 100% for a 20-year term. What we're proposing is that we bring that down to year 10 and then decrease the participation rate to 75% for both the county and the school district. So that pass-through will start in 2028.
For how many more years? Through 2044?
Yep, exactly.
Okay,
Exactly. Right now, the county's participation is at 100% through 2042.
okay.
So this is just to show you the current and proposed terms for each of the taxing entities, as well as the revised TIF caps for each taxing entity. And then under the proposed budget, we are also showing the pass-through that would come once that participation rate drops down to 75%. And then we've also looked at what our infrastructure costs have been and will be for the Adams CRA. We're anticipating that the infrastructure costs will exceed 8.9 million. Some of that is coming from prior TIF investments in the Dumpke Arts Plaza and Ogden Ave improvements. We're also projecting certain maintenance and reserve fund costs forward for the Dumpke Arts Plaza. And one of the multifamily projects that we have in the works does require some infrastructure investments as well. They'll be doing structured parking, as well as some new public spaces and utility upgrades.
I'm sorry, I'm just gonna interrupt for just a second. One of the things we did add into this particular agreement that we would not normally be considered public infrastructure is that this particular area and the projects that are in the pipeline currently, specifically the Bigelow Hotel, has it would go through a historic preservation renovation. So he's going after historic preservation credits, if I'm not mistaken. So we had added that historic preservation activities as part of an infrastructure lift for our portion, because we really only fund the infrastructure pieces, because we do see that as a public benefit to do the historic preservation on that Bigelow Hotel. So that's why you're seeing that particular line under infrastructure. Does that make sense?
And we're looking at that as well for the Forest Service building and potentially the Cache Valley Bank building. Those are other really iconic historic buildings in our community, and we understand that the cost of renovating those is going to take some extra support, but also produce those public benefits that Stephanie was just talking about. We also see some other regional public benefits from this continued investment in the Adams CRA. Certainly, we've seen in recent years that the Nine Rails Creative District has helped enhance tourism and visitation to our area. We've heard from a number of folks that, their families might have come here for a ski vacation. Not everybody may be a skier. And so it's important that we have arts and culture offerings to make sure folks can have kind of a well-rounded visit and experience when they're here in the community. And then we also just want to make sure that our community is in the best spot possible to host the world for the 2034 Olympics. And continuing to have these kind of rich arts and culture districts is an important part of that. So that's what we have proposed for today, and happy to take any questions.
Questions? Mr. Harvey?
No, I don't think I've got any questions.
Mr. Ford?
No questions, a couple of concerns, I'm not ready. So typically when we've amended any type of CRAs, we've stuck with our allowed, basically,
With the 75.
which is 75%. So the first thing for me would be 75%, and then I get real concerned when we talk about in the fine print, housing purpose, you got 20%. We've, for the last 2 or 3 years, have said, and it comes right from the state, we shouldn't have any tax increment that goes to developers for housing. It should be commercial, or it should go for infrastructure. So to me, those are the 2 deal killers right now.
That, I'm gonna retract mine and say, we have, I didn't see that part, but housing, we don't.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
for housing.
so the housing element, in my opinion, would have to come out. And I think, in all fairness to what we've told other municipalities, if we need time to revise it, if you came in today with the new one, it would be, the best it would be 75%, very possibly 50%, so.
So the state code for CRAs requires a minimum allocation to the housing fund of 10%.
Yeah,
Um,
but again, we can, in the interlocal, we can specify that none of our.
Oh, I see.
So
Yes,
just like we, I think, and I hope you're living up to it, in our previous CRAs, we
Yes.
said, look, you can use your funds or other funds for housing, but you can't use our portion, it has to go and we're asking for annual reports, if you remember.
okay, so I'm with you now. And we can certainly, the infrastructure and historic preservation activities that we have in the CRA, we have enough costs there that we can ensure that the county's contribution goes towards those costs and not towards the housing.
To me, that's the deal killer, and then the 75%.
And the 75% we've seen is kind of a compromise between the current CRA term and understanding that the county has adopted a new policy. When this CRA was adopted, it was originally set up with a participation rate of 100% for the county for a 20-year term. Because we're coming back and asking for this budget amendment, we'd like to drop that to the 75%, but wait until the 10th year to do that. And we felt that was kind of an appropriate.
Right,
Kind of an appropriate compromise between the original CRA.
right now it's at 100% for another 20 years, right? Right now it's at 100% for another 20 years.
I
Right.
get,
Through
no,
20.
I get, it. But I think we're giving, especially, you know, by us going to 75, amending the extension for 2 years. I think really that's the gift that I would be willing to do.
Scott?
So, and Steph has these numbers, this CRA, we're almost at the cap, so it's been going for what, 7 years now, and it's almost at the cap, so within 3 years, we'll be at the cap at 100%. So I look at this and saying, I know it's an amendment, but really we're finishing the one.
Right.
Because we're hitting the cap, and they're basically asking for a new one at 75% for 17 years, if you look at the math that way, so. Whether we drop this from 100% for the last few years to 75, I'll defer to you, but we're almost to that cap. So it's not like we're at 100% for another 10 plus years.
Right.
We're almost there
At the original cap.
at the original cap, yeah. So and so in my mind, I looked at it and said, okay, well, this is really almost like a brand new CRA. I get that we're amending it, but it's finished the 100% at 10 years. That'll get us to the cap. And then 75% for 17 years after that, at another 2 million something cap.
Then what if we treat it that way and we stick with the original, but then it triggers the amendment somehow when we reach the cap, or it triggers the amendment for us as far as it pertains to the county, once we reach the cap, then it triggers and we go to 75 and whatever extension.
When do we reach the cap? Which you're forecasting?
Well, it kind of depends on what the values do.
Right.
If values stay consistent, Weaver County would probably reach their cap in about 2030 at today's values, but
2030.
we know that the values are
Yeah.
increasing, so
Right.
we would hit it sooner than that. And that's at the 2.5, so the original cap for Weaver County is about 2.5 million, and we're already at 900,000.
Yeah.
So.
And the
Maybe 4 or 5 years.
the CRA is kind of outperforming expectations. I think we've really seen the impact of that concerted investment in key projects in the Adams CRA, and that's driven that growth in value, I would say, more quickly than what we've seen in similar CRAs that were set up around the same time. We want to make sure we keep that momentum going moving forward. And that we really maximize the value increases that are possible within this CRA.
One, I believe this Adams CRA this building is within that footprint of that CRA, and so we're in the process
Oh,
of paying.
sorry, no,
We're not.
East.
We're not?
I don't think we're
We're
in
the
next
next
year.
walk over.
We're in the East Washington
Yeah.
CRA.
So it
Okay,
starts at the
We're close.
corner. Yeah,
okay,
right across the
fine,
street from
fine.
us.
That
Good.
right at the
All right.
really big building in the corner.
Is it possible to make the dates flexible in the agreement, so that it
Yes.
does trigger the amendment after we reach the cap? Because I think I would be comfortable with that, and then we just move to the 75%.
And I was also gonna recommend that we took the 20% out for the
Yeah.
county,
Yeah, yeah.
because we do not,
For sure,
we don't pay for housing.
That
sure
housing
that-
component has to come out.
That
in my
would,
opinion.
yeah, I was gonna recommend that also.
for sure that. I'd like to see it revised, and so there's not a specific date, but it's when we reach the cap, then our revised participation kicks in. That's
Kicks in.
how I'd like to see it.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
So continue under the current terms until the current cap is met, and then
Then it
reduce
would-
the participation
that-
rate down to
Mhm.
75% through the end of the
Through
CRA
the end of the
term.
CRA term.
Okay.
Will that work, Sarah?
I think so. I think if we can formalize that through an agreement, that will still allow us to make the commitments we might need to make sure certain projects happen in the CRA. So I think as long as that can be written into the agreement and we know that that's how it'll be structured, then I think we can
It's-
still move forward.
Yeah, Lauren, I'll work with you on
Yeah,
that. That's
okay.
kind of similar to what we do with our PAB governing documents.
Right.
So you and I can put that together and then let's make sure we take that 20% out of the interlocal.
And I have the current CRA even as written, extended through 2044.
Oh, you,
for
so
the
you
county.
have the COVID extension on there already.
The school district is, I think, shorter,
Oh, yes, it is, but
Mhm.
but we're to 2044 for the county.
okay, perfect.
Are you gonna go to the school district? Okay, that's.
Yes, so we've had quite a bit of discussion so far with the school board and we're on their agenda for this Thursday actually to request their action on this as well. So it's the same terms that we proposed here where they would continue at 100% through year 10 and then drop to 75%, but stay in through 2044. So again, they start to recognize some of the benefits of the value increase at year 10 with the 25% pass through. But they would participate for a little bit
And
longer.
I think they they're in the next year or two, the school district will.
So that may be an option we could discuss with them as well. But certainly it sounds like there's a way to structure it that way in this interlocal agreement.
Okay, so we'll restructure
Okay.
that and then we'll also remove the 20%.
Yep.
And then we'll come back with a new revised interlocal. Do you guys want to have another work session or how would you like to move forward after we rewrite this interlocal, the amendments?
We can do a work session, 15 minutes.
Yeah, I was gonna say her individually, because I think it's just, yeah,
Probably a good idea.
Okay,
Okay.
great, thank you.
All right, thanks so much,
Thanks.
Patty. We appreciate it. Take care.
See you, Sarah.
Don't you need to look at that? I mean, that's, I'll share it, put in here.
It's an item.
You should review it.
Yeah, I mean, so there may be some limits on the utilities, but it's all changing.
We'll start back up here. Okay, item 4, discussion regarding right-of-way improvements for 1400 South Street. Along with findings from research conducted by the county surveyor's office. Felix Severino, Rick Roper, Charlie Ewert, Gary Myers, Liam Keel, John Wilkinson, Jeremy Matthews, Tucker Wade. Felix.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, and this is revisiting this topic. We've been in here once before, this very same thing, but we're just trying to get a little bit more detail, maybe some direction from the county commission as far as the 1400 South Street improvements. We've gone through some negotiations and also doing a little bit of research into, you know, what type of improvements would be appropriate for 1400 South. The developer also provided us with a traffic generation study from Reeve and Associates, which also helped to kind of guide, provide a little more information. And we had some research done by the county surveyor's office into what type of right-of-way dedication exists currently along 1400 South. And so I think we'll just kind of cover some of those bases through the, and I'm gonna work on getting this map up. But I think,
Try to get this down.
yeah, let me stop share.
Oh, is that why I can't?
Yeah, I'm gonna stop share and then that way it's back to normal. Again, just a quick recap. This is a request to change zoning on a 40-acre piece of land. It's currently zoned A1. They're looking to develop this under the R115 zone code. And
Which is allowed by the general plan?
yes.
Thank you.
And we did get a positive recommendation from the planning commission. And part of the reason why we're trying to figure out a good solution here to 1400 would be a recommendation. One of the recommendations from the planning commission was that 1400 South be widened. And Mr. Brent Edwards made the recommendation and it was unanimous to be included as a condition for that rezone. And there was also a recommendation that the irrigation to surrounding area be maintained. And so that's something that will be addressed through the subdivision process, review process. But as far as for today's discussion goes, primarily just the 1400 South topic here.
And Felix, was the recommendation from the planning commission to widen it from the development east or west as well?
Yes, it was to widen it from the development to the east to 3500 West Street.
To 3500,
Yes,
But not west.
but not out to 4300.
That's shown on page 2.
Age goods.
And Felix, as far as the dedication to the east, it's basically by right of use. We don't actually have physical dedication
that's right.
to the east.
Yes, there are a couple small areas. But the majority of that stretch, which is about a half a mile stretch, is basically right by use. Yeah. Maybe we can start out with Gary, would you like to start out with some of your thoughts on the improvements on on this road?
Well, it's a little tricky, commissioners, because we don't exactly have super clear title to the existing road. It's mostly just been a road by use. So it's not as easy as just widening the road, because we don't have title. And we would have to purchase title outside of areas that are not affected by this development. For the development, it's easy. We have the developer develop or dedicate the right of way that fronts it. Perfect, we're good to go. But anywhere outside of that, it's a little bit tricky. Our standards, minimum road width is gonna be 24 feet of asphalt. Out there, I went out and measured it myself between 3500 west and the eastern boundary of the development. It averages about 22 feet wide of asphalt, so it's 2 feet short. That in itself adds in a different complexity too, because how do you widen the road correctly, the extra 2 feet, if you put it all on one side? Well, whether you split it or whether you put it on one side, unless you mill down the existing road and pave in wider than just what you're widening it, if you were to just go out there and add 1 foot to each side, within probably 2 years, you're gonna see that 1 foot crack and pull apart and fall away from the existing road. Needs to be, excuse me, needs to be milled down and tied in to our existing asphalt. So that would be my recommendation of how it's widened. The question is, do we do it all on one side? Do we split it up? The question was asked earlier, prior to this meeting, do we pipe the ditch and widen across the top of that?
Which side is the ditch on?
So on the, there's a deeper ditch on the north side of the road, commissioners. There is kind of a small, what would you call it, Dave? Kind of a swell or a tailwater ditch on the
Depending on,
south side of the
yeah,
road.
depending on what property, but.
And it's not generally a consistent swell
Mhm.
all the way to the east on the south side. You're gonna, and quite frankly, on the north side, it's not a consistent ditch
Yeah.
all the way to the east either. So I don't know that piping it gives you the place to pave, if that makes sense. So we're kind of at a little bit of an impasse on this. I'm not sure I have a great recommendation. The traffic study, normally a traffic study is gonna give us some specific recommendations. This was quite to that level. But usually as a general rule of thumb, how many lots you guys have going in here, Dave? 100?
114 additional.
114. So the basic rule of thumb is on a residential lot, the trip generation manual says you're gonna generate about 8 trips a day out of one lot. For a residential type situation. So 114, that's
1,000.
pretty darn close, just shy thereof. So, that road is now gonna see that many more trips a day on it. Now admittedly, the road will tie into the subdivision to the south, the DeGiorgio subdivision. And also the new subdivision and Selmy to the west. However, logic would tell you that if most services or needs anybody's gonna have that lives here in this subdivision, more than likely their trips are gonna be to the east, not to the west. So I don't believe that, unless maybe they're going to a school, going to a sports practice. Sure,
Yeah.
and those create some of those 8 trips per day. But probably it's gonna be like a 70-30 split. Would be a good safe bet.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you said before that that was the reason Anselmi didn't have the same requirement. Is because they had tied into 4300 West.
Yeah, this was an issue with Anselmi.
Yeah,
If you recall, commissioners, probably 2 years ago or so, one of the things that was an issue with Anselmi was our code requires them to upgrade the road they're tying into back to where it meets standard, which would have forced them to upgrade 1400 all the way east to 3500 west. They got out of that by tying into 4300 west, which has been brought up to standard because of the development in the area.
So basically the green from Anselmi to 43 has been upgraded.
Not even that, Commissioner. They tied in south of 1400. There's,
Oh, okay.
they kind of tied in mid-block level a little
Okay,
bit,
so
if
then,
you will.
all right.
And that's how they tied into the
Got it.
road.
And I said at the time, until the next developer comes in here, and then we're gonna end up taking the hook for the Anselmi. This is exactly.
But it worked out, for them at the time. So that leaves us here back where we're at. Kind of tough. I don't know the best recommendation to give you guys on this, if I'm being completely honest. Dave asked the question, can you tie into Anselmi? And have that meet road standards? I guess technically, legally, probably, even though I don't believe that's where your traffic's gonna go.
That's not where the traffic will go.
No. Well, you got 114 or whatever here.
114 lots.
You've got what, 20 to 30 over here?
I think that's what it was.
45.
Okay. So you got basically 5 times more traffic coming off of here.
And quite frankly, if I'm being completely honest, the Anselmi traffic, I believe a majority of that's gonna go east down 1400 as well.
Probably will.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm being brutally honest, I do not believe all of that traffic's gonna access on the 4300 west. No, I
Maybe,
just don't.
maybe the lower half,
Maybe,
where they live on that street.
but just black, you know, black and white, how I see it. So, should start 70. Yeah,
He will tomorrow.
so it's tough to give you a great recommendation one way or the other on this. Do we put it on this development to bring it up to standard all the way back? Well, it's not quite that easy because we don't own the right of way to widen the road on.
What don't we own? What's the blue?
Blue is right of way, just by deed, so it's just a different means of conveyance.
Okay, so how much do we have of that we don't have deed to?
What we own is basically edge of oil to edge of oil. That's what we have road by use on. Chris, am I speaking correctly on that? Is that the general attorney's office definition or interpretation of road by use is oil to oil? Or is it possible to widen that to go a little bit wider?
Okay. So we're talking about a prescriptive use?
Yes, sir.
Yes. My understanding is that it's based off historical use. That does include some area of a right of way. I'll have to go back and check to see if there's an established width for that. The key thing to remember with those types of things is you need to determine exactly what that is going to be. So you have to file some type of action.
And then in this section of the roadway, there's not even guaranteed fences along here on some of these fields. A lot of fallen into non-existence, I guess is probably the best way of.
And other questions are gonna be, is it used as a thoroughfare? For travel?
It will be.
Depends on the day.
It will be.
Yeah, so I think it has to be for a certain number of years prior to this be used as that, so some type of connecting. Roadway. I'll have to check and make sure that if there's a statute that actually describes width. Or not, I know that's changed over the years, but we can do it.
Yeah, it's not my area of expertise.
But I do know for a fact you will need a court order to determine whether or not you actually have a right for prescriptive use. And that's usually done by either we take the action or we take action to widen it and someone files a lawsuit against us.
Was there any question about the developer actually widening their portion? Is that a given?
That's a given. Yes,
We're just talking about the additional.
yes.
Yeah, it's typically goes to the requirement of accessing a development off of a substandard street. And right now, it's not a standard street. 24 is typically what we try to have. Yeah, 22.
In my former life, when we saw things like this, the developer improved their section, which was not done on Anselmi. And it was just left that way until the other property owners took action and started developing. I mean, you're always tied to whatever their timeline is, which may be 20 years, it may be 20 months. But it puts the burden on each developer. And we missed that boat with the one to the west. So. I mean, back then, if the city wanted the rest of this widened, that would be ours to work through. It's a lot more complicated than just purchasing property. Please.
You know, this goes back to, we've had these discussions before. And this goes back to who's really taking the ding on this, the first in or the last in, right? It depends on the subdivision, where it is, right? We've seen that around the county, whether it's west or east or however that is. See, so it seems to me like we're cutting the same patch of ground here again. How do we fix this? So this, cause here's the same question, if this were done, then we wouldn't be really be, you know, that, as far as I'm concerned, the subdivision, okay, that's great. That's not the, that doesn't seem like that's the question, this part, it's the road. Okay, so what's the process? How do we create a process, or how do we create a, a process? So this isn't the, you know, or is that just the way it is?
Or is a pioneering agreement an option?
Yeah, it's a pioneering agreement, an option for when those other dudes come in, so these guys can get their money back, and I'd like to stick it to Anselmi still, of course, I got outvoted back then, but. Cause they're still by a little bit of usage, they're gonna use that still. I still think people are gonna go up to 4,300, don't go to those schools eventually, you know?
There could be some type of payback agreement as they tie in to the road system along there if the developer puts it in.
That's the answer to me.
That's probably the biggest reason why we have the substandard road requirement, because as a county, we want to make sure that development happens progressively. And right now, we have this piece in the middle, but then we have pieces that are closer to a standard road than this one. And so this one is kind of leapfrogging over those to get to that. And so that's why the planning commission, and engineering, they looked at, you know, we'll go back and do a traffic study to show us the impact on there. And like Felix mentioned, the traffic study doesn't give us a lot of
Right.
detail
Right.
on what should happen. And you know, and they've talked to the people on to the south of there to see if they'd be interested in selling, and they're not.
To the
To
south?
the east.
To the east of there, but on the south side, is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
Development.
on the east side, on the south side. And
Only two property owners, but.
Yeah, and they're not
they own
Adjacent?
Quite a bit. Caps and Roqueladas.
Yeah, they're not interested in selling.
Yeah.
And so that's, you know, a little bit of a fly in the ointment.
No, it may be different if we say 2 feet. I don't know. At the time when I talked to him, it was widen it to whatever the county engineers determined is needed, but. Yeah, and you had talked to, the engineers for the traffic study. And they talked about the level of service and how it's not gonna go it's not gonna change based on this development, correct? Correct. So it's a B now. It'll stay a B.
It'll stay a B. If
After
it
that.
lowers, it might be a C plus.
Yeah, but it's still a substandard road according to Weaver County's 24 feet.
And I think planning commission's recommendation was based off of engineering's comments. And I think Gary's, you know, most of the people will be going east, but we'll have some that are going south as well. And so, you know, it's a timing issue. And right now, you know, do we want to hold up this development until we get that taken care of? You know, how do we want to proceed with this is what we're, you know, throwing out to you. And I think that's why the planning commission said what they did, but they didn't know all of those things as far as the right of way and right of use at that time. So, you know, let's, and we could go and have the courts make a decision on this. But there's a lot of things we don't know on this piece of property just because it's right of use.
Could we determine a fee that we could pay into that would allow, you know, for the county to take some time to get the right of ways that we can proceed forward? You know, we can pay a fee that would be used towards widening the road when the county has the
I think
Madam
that's
Chair,
tough because I don't know, do you have any idea what that total cost is gonna be? I mean, how do you
We
set that without?
we can know fairly well if we're just talking 2 feet, right?
The asphalt
easily.
portion is easy to estimate.
Sure.
It's
The
rest of
easements
road.
are the-
It's the right of way
It's
portion.
the right of way portion
right,
that I'm thinking.
It'd be the dirt, it'd be the taking that would be expensive, that we don't have any idea what that would be.
Exactly.
You'd probably end up going to court.
and my
So-
concern too, are you okay if I speak, Madam Chair? My concern is that whatever fee we establish at this date may not be enough to cover that
Right.
Yeah.
when we
Yeah.
go to actually put it.
And then would it be fair to increase the fee for subsequent property owners? Not really,
Right.
but we may see down the road as it progresses, oh, we didn't charge enough, so then we have to make that up somewhere and we're charging an unfair proportion to additional property owners as the road progresses to the east. Commissioner Harvey?
Seems to me like you'd wanna have, I liked your idea about the pioneering agreement, if and how that can go together. I think that's the way to do it. I don't like the idea of doing this 2 times, so I think we ought to do it right the first time and whatever that's gonna end up being. I don't wanna put these guys off by going and getting a ruling, a judgment, and this, that, and the other, but on the flip side, I don't wanna do it wrong and then have to tear it out and do it again. This is a road that is, will be widened just like every other road from east to west that we have going out there, and then we'll go up and Wacog and the whole deal again. So let's just do the thing right, would be my guess, and however that goes, but allow these guys they're gonna have to pay the money, but they allow them to get recouped their money through that pioneering agreement that's where I'm sitting right this minute. That makes sense to me.
And the pioneering agreement would allow us to capture all the costs. At least the way I understand it, capture all the costs
At today's
at
rate,
today's rate. And provide a payback
some poor guys can't afford it.
versus huge.
It's a
True.
problem.
If we improve the road or require the improvements on the proposed subdivision, and then each individual property owner does that. They have more of an incentive when it's them selling their property to developer, right?
Yeah.
They're gonna give it away for the road improvements.
Commissioners, could I maybe offer one more thought, to think about on this? I feel like, I'm hesitant to even mention this, but I feel like it needs to be mentioned. I kind of echo Mr. Grover's concern that it's a great plan to figure out what that cost would be, and then have the developer pay the proportionate share of what that cost would be. The challenge is we don't have any way of predicting what construction material costs will do as well too in the next couple of years. And as we understand, by the time the right-of-way issue gets settled and resolved, that could be beyond more than a year down the road with some of these property owners if we did start to pursue purchasing right-of-way. So if we're 2-3 years down the road, who knows what the price of materials could do? We run into this situation quite frequently with escrow accounts, with whatever money is put into escrow for this type of thing, and I apologize if I'm just throwing up hurdles. That's not my intention. I just want you to understand the complexities we've run into on other similar situations as well too.
Well, I mean, we do need to talk about it, and we've had litigation in the past over this where county fronted in a particular project $100,000, which we didn't need to. So one of the questions I have is, and sorry if you've already talked about this, but where does this fall in the prioritization schedule of when we would go in and actually widen this in comparison to other county projects? I mean, what would be the motivation to put this ahead of any other project?
Right now. Question if I might.
Yeah, please.
So the first issue, in my opinion, we gotta solve is title to the ground. The right of way. So that may take quiet title action, but there's no sense in talking about which direction until we know we have legal right to do it. And so I think that you gotta have some type of quiet title action, go to the courts, get the ruling, know where that road can be first. And then you can start talking about construction costs. to talk about construction cost right now was irrelevant because in 2 or 3 years, but I mean, this is 120 plus homes on that road is just way too many right now. So it has to be done. I agree with Commissioner Harvey. We need to do it. We need to do it right now. You know, and Selmy cured theirs. They met the intent of the law by taking over to 43. I guess if there's another alternative going south, then let's look at an alternative, but in order to use the frontage along 1400, it has to be improved. End of story. And that's gonna take getting title so that we have a legal right to go in there and start talking about, okay, now let's put that 24 feet here.
So, I mean, we'd have to evaluate historical evidence to see if it even meets the test, render an opinion, and if it doesn't, then we'd have to look at eminent domain.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess that's the end of the day, would be eminent domain.
So I think for today, if we're evaluating whether or not we'd be willing to approve the subdivision with only improvements on that section, it doesn't sound like any of us are open to doing that. I think the road needs to be taken care of with the subdivision to the east.
So Anselmi was approved because they went the full width of the road.
And they tied in with an approved road, which was 4,300.
So we're gonna tie into Anselmi as well as the subdivision to the south. If we improve across the whole road, can we have the same treatment?
I don't know,
That would be a judgment call by our engineering.
that would be, you're talking a lot,
We have a lot more access than they do. Right?
Yeah.
So I would assume that the same standards could apply.
Kind of thinking through that, because we talked about it briefly before this meeting, the challenge I have with that, Dave, is the subdivision to the south. Those were originally built back in the 70s. They don't, or they're also a local road. What you would want to be tying into is something that's either a collector or an arterial road. And those don't meet that level of classification. They weren't designed to handle that much use and that much traffic. The facility doesn't meet up to what those requirements would be. So it's tough to say that we could go south. To go west into Anselmi, I don't remember what those road widths were, but generally those are gonna be classified as local roads as
I
well.
think they are. Yeah.
So we're back to that same problem that they're not gonna be a collector or an arterial type.
Well,
road.
1600 south, a collector road.
I'm sorry, what?
1600 that goes through Anselmi up to 4300, that's a collector road.
Yeah,
That's how you gave Anselmi approval, because they had to put
Yeah.
that road in.
yeah, you're right.
So,
So that would be. Again, I don't think your traffic's gonna funnel that direction when they need to leave the subdivision, right? Some
yeah,
will,
no different than Anselmi would.
well, it's different because you got 5 times more homes.
No, they have 45, we have 114, so.
and Selmy also fronts up against the wider collective road. Right?
They're gonna be accessing 1400, and no more different than our subdivision would be.
Yes, there was probably a kind of a. Yeah.
So, this is another thought, and this is only from my conversation with Felix, but this is all kind of a thing for us because we're trying to rezone, correct? If I just keep it in A1 and I do a cluster subdivision, we don't have to worry about widening the road or anything like that, correct?
Well, we still have the access of developing on substandard road. So you'd still have to address the substandard road.
So the road is, no matter what, the road's gonna be an issue.
Yeah, because of the substandard nature.
Hmm.
And that's why the planning commission felt justified in requiring this as part of their motion,
Yeah,
is because of that requirement in the subdivision ordinance.
yeah.
So that's
But
where,
somehow Anselmi is able to move forward though. Cause I could do a cluster subdivision, get like 60 lots.
Aunt Selmy they abut, a standard road in that area, but you would be going through there to get to that area.
They abut a standard road.
Yeah,
Their property goes right up to
4,300.
4,300.
Oh, correct. So I'd be tying into that standard road as well. 1,600.
Yeah,
Through-
you'd be
through
kind
their
of,
sub-
Through
yeah,
them,
Through their sub.
not
that's the
adjacent.
problem.
I guess I don't understand why that's. Oh, you're saying because they bought all the way to 4,300, their subdivision
Abuts.
Abuts
abuts
that.
That's
that.
against.
Yeah, that's how they did it.
How is that any
Yeah,
different
standard
than
road.
I'm going to abut their subdivision that has a standard road?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we'd have to talk to legal on that because, a portion of it does, but a portion of it doesn't. And when you're looking at the proportionality and the amount of lots you're developing versus the amount of lots that they're developing, I think that it's,
So Beverly Martini, who's owned this, her husband's blood, sweat and tears in that property, can't sell her property and do anything with it because the county has a substandard road.
is this, I'm sorry, Beverly Martini, is that
She's the
your
owner of the
property?
land.
Okay, all right,
So none of it,
you do have some issues with the substandard nature of the ordinance and all the lots along that road have
Have
an
the
issue
same.
with that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
so the county went and approved this whole new general plan they can't do anything with.
well, they can, but they can't, we're not looking at leapfrogging development as it happens. It has to happen in a logical manner. And when it does happen, then they have to put the added improvements to a standard road so that, and then, we could look at, some type of payback agreement to help you out.
Sure, which we're totally willing to do,
Yeah,
And we're,
which we're only talking 2 feet.
yeah, but that's where, we're trying to meet that requirement, but our hands are somewhat tied because of the substandard nature.
so I think the path forward involves a payback agreement,
That's
at least in my opinion.
Me too.
Yeah,
But
But I don't
after you have right of way.
but
Yeah,
before we could even talk
Yeah,
about
I mean,
payback,
we've
we
got
could
it.
talk about title.
we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because otherwise you're not gonna capture all the costs
No.
of the road. It's more than just the road.
Well, yeah, until we know we have the legal authority to go in there, either eminent domain,
Right.
we can improve the road. We're talking, pie in the sky,
Mhm.
so.
Look, Dave, this is, sorry, Madam Chair,
Please.
this is how this worked out. Years ago, however many years ago, when Martini was in there, they had a road in there and somebody put in an old dirt road out there. Okay, before we had engineers and computers and all this stuff. And then somebody got with somebody else and they put some oil down on it and then they put, over the time, somebody probably came and paved it, this, that, and the other. It's never been properly taken care of. Now, all of a sudden, we've got this nice, new, beautiful subdivision going in, but there's some stuff that just never got done. If the Martinis would have developed a nice 45-foot or 60-foot road out there, that was a paved road in the very beginning, they didn't need that, cause all they had is one house in the middle of a big field. And that's kind of how that's the problem. What what we're saying here is, look, we're willing to work with you. We gotta put the nice new road in. You're thinking, well, hold on. I don't wanna put this nice new road in for my little deal. What about all these guys that need to pay for it? We're saying, yeah, they'll just end up having to pay you back over time.
I have no issue paying to get it widened. I just don't see.
We don't have the
The timing
title.
of that.
We don't have the title
Yeah,
to the
right of way, that's
property.
the issue.
We don't have the title to the
And I see
property.
that being a
And I
major.
think legal, we're advised so that we don't fall under more. I hate legal expense. I hate spending county dollars on legal expense.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's a really nice lawyer, but I hate having no lawyers.
Well, the problem is, I mean, if you do prescriptive use, I mean, you're gonna have the regular expenses of just the civil
Yeah.
attorneys. If you do eminent domain, I think we're contracted at $450 an hour, and it's a minimum of 6 months. I would say to even come close to
If you're
getting
lucky.
Mhm.
through eminent domain. It's quite the long process.
Usually it goes a little longer than that, because what'll happen is the individuals affected will reach out to the state ombudsman's office, and then they can request additional appraisals.
Those are just attorney's hours, you gotta pay for certified
Yeah.
appraisals. All the things.
That's the total time, start to finish, can really stretch out, and it's tough to give you.
Well,
Window of time.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Okay.
you know, I've also sat in here and in my own mind thinking, okay, we got 1,400, that's one. How many other roads don't we own in this county? And we need to be getting to working on owning more roads. So the Dave Lowleys that come in and want to develop 1,100 south or 9,300 south or whatever south it ends up being down the road or whatever west it ends, we're at least getting down the road. I didn't have any idea. You said we don't own the road, whoever said you did. I thought, how does that ever happen? But then going through this, I can see how it all happens.
Yeah.
But we need to start owning some more roads. I didn't know we didn't own that road.
Well, I think this is probably something we need to make note of in planning.
Yeah.
That when they come to us with those preliminary plans, before they put a lot of investment
Having
into it,
money and
let's check the title, let's see what the width is. Let's check the road, because that's, I mean, we talk about water and sewer, but we kind of, because there's been a road there, everybody comes in, the engineers say, well, you've got a road, you can build right up. Well, we may or may not have a road, just like we may or may not have water or sewer. So I think that needs to go on our list with planning commission.
Yep.
And let's have that verified before we get to this
For
stage.
sure. Yep, absolutely.
Martini could own that whole, he could own the whole thing out there. Martini could own, I mean, that 1,400, maybe he sold off 10 or 20 acres to this guy, 10 or 20 acres to this guy in 1860 or 18.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how, he's one of the old pioneering families though that are
Yeah,
here.
oh, yeah, this is Junior's wife,
No, I've been there a while.
so.
So,
Okay,
sorry for
well,
the problem.
we don't need to belabor it anymore. I think
So
we know
there's
where we're
no willingness to try to give an approval based on the same approval you gave to Anselmi.
I don't think so, because it doesn't abut that road.
Doesn't abut the road.
No, we don't have a
Can't
conforming
do
road.
But you still are tying in the exact same way the subdivision's abutting to.
If that
That's
would have been there,
1,600.
if they would have had all the land over to this land and it would have all just been one subdivision, would you give an approval if it touched that road?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question.
So if Martini's property was the same as Anselmi's, whatever the name
They all
is.
subdivided together, it's exactly.
Yeah, and if it was one piece, would you guys have given approval because it abuts that road?
Who knows, because that would have been a whole lot more homes than 45.
Yeah.
That's speculation.
And you can
So-
still do, if you want this piece here, then just buy all this property here, go to 3,500. Cause you can't go through here, buy these two and come out, I don't know. So that's what you're talking about.
Okay,
I don't
well,
know another way to.
Felix, that's where we are.
Thank you, good discussion, that gives me a lot of good information, so. thank you,
So
everybody.
then we have to wait till the county gets easements.
Title.
Title, yeah, till you get title to the road wide enough.
Yeah.
So is that gonna be high on priority list to do, or what's the?
Typically, the county is not in the road business of acquiring title. That happens at the developer's cost and expense. And that's why we talked about a payback agreement. But we have to go in and acquire roads and things
Sure.
like that. It's
Okay,
not.
true. So there's a lot of subdivisions going in the county
And
right
they
now.
all have to do the same thing.
They all are doing the same thing. There's no one's not meeting this same requirement.
For instance, you can go to Heritage on 3,600. The reason why that's not developing right now is because they have to improve 3,600 quite a ways out. And so they have to work that issue out before they can develop. They can't just leapfrog in and develop that without having access to that. So that's an example of one.
So I need to go get the right of way and sell it back to the county. Or give it
Yeah,
to the county.
most of the time, that's what they do,
Dedicated.
dedicate it over.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, you guys.
Oh.
We're a little behind, but let me, go ahead and entertain the motion to move to a closed session. To
Motion to
discuss
move to a closed session to discuss.
the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property.
Thank you. Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Commissioner Hardy,
I
meeting.
Moved it. Move that we leave closed session and go back into open session.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Okay. Thank you. We're trying to catch up.
She got chosen.
Um,
Send that email again for us.
Change every time I come.
Come on in.
Not every time. I appreciate that you.
That's
There's our little
come to me and just see it in
brother.
action going through.
That's
It's pretty cool. That's good. It is. Sorry. Rough.
I'm gonna have to do that.
Rough.
Discussions, just.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay,
Who's Sparkle?
Sparkle, I don't know, sounds like a sharp
It's
guy.
Sparky. Oh my gosh.
I mean, I've been Sparky ever since I've been
I'll
the
say,
email address.
yeah.
Let me give you some treats, good boy.
Sorry.
Is this it? Well, aside from Commissioner Forward.
Cortland's probably still in his.
Cortland is not available. Didn't think he would be, but
Is he making arguments to your husband still?
are they
Career
arguing?
Service Council?
Yes.
Oh, boy. Wow. They started at 9. They did. Did they feed them?
James said they were walking over to Subway.
I thought it was
At
a
lunchtime.
pretty straightforward case.
Hmm.
They're going at it.
Well, we might as well get started and Commissioner Forward can wander back in. We're on item 6, a discussion on recommendation of tax review committee to deny a request
That's still right.
Oh,
or not.
Or no, they just need to change the description of it.
Oh,
oh. Yeah, are we muted?
no.
Okay, sorry about that. Sorry to interrupt.
You're making me question everything.
She told.
Am I on earth or not? Discussion on recommendation of tax review committee to deny a request for prior year tax relief. Stephanie Eber, Scott Parker, Key Hatch, and Chris Crockett. Steph?
Okay, so I am here. This is maybe kind of just a question on the forum that you, as the commission wants us to report this information. So we meet as a tax review committee, usually once a month. And typically, when we've had cases where they've been found in favor of the property owner where taxes are being abated, the item gets placed on the commission agenda on a Tuesday meeting, and the tax review committee gives the recommendation in that forum. But this one, we found, or the committee recommended not to abate the taxes. And so I'm trying to close the loop on that. I talked to Shelley and she recommended I ask Cortland what we need to do, and he suggested that we put this on the work session and find out from you whether you want to hear these types of things in this meeting or just have them put on the commission agenda on Tuesday, where the tax review committee is recommending not to abate any taxes. And so I can give you the information, but that's basically, I'm here at the recommendation of Cortland to find out how you want to complete the loop on this process.
Does it take our approval to not abate the taxes? Or does it just require our approval to abate taxes?
So the tax review committee gives a recommendation when it is abating taxes, but I guess again, to close the loop on, we notify the property owner that we gave the recommendation, but I think the final say so on whether or not the taxes are abated is still your decision.
Yeah, I think because they appealed, we have to respond back either yes or no.
And the commissioners have to respond.
Yeah, and so the tax review committee reviews it and makes a recommendation to you, and you either accept or reject, modify, I mean, whatever you want to do with the recommendation, but their
Alright.
recommendation is no, don't
Ours
abate this one.
ours is only a recommendation, and I think that's
Yeah.
why we're bringing it to
Well,
you.
oh, please.
Wouldn't that give, if we did hear it in a commission meeting, not so much a work session, the petitioner to at least speak in a public body to,
Right.
not that we have to follow his but we're likely gonna follow, I would likely follow let me say that. I would likely follow the recommendation of the tax review committee.
Mhm. Yeah, and we notified him, we did notify this property owner, when the tax review committee met. And, gave him that information, and he did not attend that meeting. So I don't know if he would or not, but I agree with you, and I think that was my first inclination, was to just put it on the commission meeting agenda on a Tuesday, but is that, and if that's what you want me to do, I'd be happy to do that.
Well, I think because it requires our action, it makes sense to, and whether we choose to abate or not.
Okay,
So that would mean the first time you'd essentially hear about these cases would be in that commission meeting. So the question I guess I would ask is, do you want, free and from Emmy, do you want to hear the recommendation of the tax review committee, or would you want to wait and hear that in the
I
commission
think we
meeting?
would wanna do it on a work session the day before,
Okay,
so we can hear the reasoning behind that recommendation, or
okay. So
I'd like the background on it.
So put it on a work session, regardless if we're abating or not, well, I guess either way, what our
I think so.
recommendation is. A work session and then put it on a commission
I
agenda.
think so, then it gives us
Yeah.
a chance to hear about
Yeah.
and ask questions
That's
about the recommendation if we have any.
Perfect.
Do you want to
Yeah.
invite the petitioner to the work session?
I don't think so, I think just the commission meeting.
They would have the right to come to commission and
Well,
talk
they-
then.
They could come and listen in, but I
Yeah.
mean,
well, and they also can come to the tax review.
right,
hearing where it's being originally, or where.
Yeah,
the
that
tax review
same
committee said-
information would
They,
be,
they could be invited to the work session, but they may or may not be invited by
To
the
speak.
chair to speak or comment. That would have to be in the
Okay.
commission meeting.
but if the action's gonna be taken at commission meeting, I say that's where you would invite them.
all right, so you want to hear this case
Yeah.
and then I can get it on the next commission meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, so we had an individual, Brandon Bobco, he's a property owner, lives up in Huntsville. He received a disabled veterans tax relief in 2019. And we mailed him out the information to continue that tax relief in 2020, and he never responded. And so once they don't respond and they don't confirm the information, then they fall off of that tax relief, and we don't grant them tax relief, nor do we continue to send them the applications every year. And so he contacted us this February, I believe it was, and asked for tax relief for the years 2020 through 2024. And because he had no reason for not supplying the information that we requested of him, the tax review committee recommended that the prior tax years were not abated. And so that was the recommendation, and that's what we're gonna come to you at the commission meeting with.
To clarify, it was from 2020 to 2023 that they said don't abate, the 2024 we
20.
could,
Correct.
Oh, okay.
because it's within the 1 year
Yeah.
late application, so he can file a late, and did file a late
Yeah.
appeal, which we processed and I believe was granted. He's also filed for 2025, which will be processed and granted.
Right.
But it's the year 2020 through 2023, we don't have anything in statute that allows us to do that. And the burden's on him, and he's, so yeah, that was the recommendation.
Okay. Any
Okay,
questions?
no, I think
Any
that makes
questions?
perfect sense.
Okay,
I like it.
Okay,
we'll see you next week.
thanks
I mean, we'll see you before then, but.
Yes. for this case,
All righty,
and thank you for the clarification.
yep. Getting close to getting caught up.
Yeah.
If you need to catch up, you just have our office.
That's right.
I don't know, sometimes I go over.
See, I'm not sure that's always true.
Yeah, I was like, I don't need to be here, I can come back if you want, or I was gonna listen in on it though, just for fun.
We want to have you here.
Yeah, cheers.
Okay, moving right along. Discussion regarding 2200 South Construction Project, Ashley Tolman, Gary Myers, Chad Meyerhofer, and Rick Whitfoot, and Lauren is still not here. We don't have an attorney, so.
Oh, this could be exciting.
Ashley.
This is the best time.
No one to
get
keep
going,
us
yeah.
in line. Yeah, so this, what I wanted to come talk to you about is the project along 2200 south of the new high school.
we're working to widen that road to get, more lane room along that frontage. Would you like to speak?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Don't invite him to do that.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I will.
All right, so I'll just keep going, but I had designed it originally with curb all along the south side of the road. As we got into, after we bid it and started looking at it, we should add curb along the north side where the existing church is to just complete that off. It'll help it, so then when they come in and mill the road and overlay it, they have good target points on each side of the road. And so, what I have is a work change directive, which is also known as a change order. I didn't want to put that in the title because I knew Commissioner Harvey might be a little teed up and ready to go. So.
Hold on, keep going.
He's talking,
Okay.
Commissioner, not me.
So what we added was curb at the bid price, so we're not getting an additional tack on fee to do the curb on that north side. And then because of the low point in the curb, we needed to add a storm drain crossing. And so, those prices are reflected on a change order that I'm proposing to our contract with the excavator, Alta Excavating. They've been doing a great job out there. Just to increase these amounts to put in that curb, add the box and the pipe, and then amend our contract with them through this change order.
And the cost is?
And the cost is $32,575. Some of that's based on tonnages for road base, so it could change if they use more or less. That's the estimate of the tonnages. So that is half the discussion, is that change order. Do you have any questions on that?
Do you have any questions or comments?
It's just interesting that we're widening east-west road that has an even number. I'm to say at this point.
I do have a question, so why did this get put on later? Why was it not put on the original price? And I understand it's the same
Yeah,
price, but would it,
that is a good question. So
I just wonder why we didn't have it on originally.
when I had designed that, the south side, we had a ditch there. We've gone through and been, our roads department's
I know
piped
the
some of
ditch,
that.
yeah.
And then we put a curb in. The philosophy there was to have a barrier to keep people from crossing into that field, keep vehicles from parking off that shoulder into private property. And so that's the way we bid it. As I went back in and looked at it, the church had talked about maybe doing some improvements there to update their frontages at that intersection of 4300 and 22. But I guess when I looked at it, my thought was, we're putting a lot of curb in on the south side for somebody. Why wouldn't we do the same for the person on the north side of the road?
Okay,
Now, is that correct? Maybe not, maybe.
so
kinda-
with that, if I might. So we didn't have change orders number 3, 4, 5 to add more curb to the north side, or do you think this is it? I
So
mean,
this,
I'd like to have it all done
yeah,
at one
that's
time.
a good
Great
question.
Just something about my nature. I like knowing what my numbers are before we start the project.
So the project that I designed and we're doing is basically half of that block, which is the frontage along the school. The school put in curb and gutter
Right.
for a majority of it, and the seminary building also put in a
Right.
section. This would be that last section to get to
Okay.
4300. However, going west from the school's west boundary to 4700 west, we don't have any curb and gutter, and none planned
On either side.
on either side.
Okay.
Some of there's a storm drain along the south side that's a major undertaking that we just couldn't get that taken out and replaced in time for some of these other things. So there, I guess, but there is another change order we wanted to talk about. or not a change order, but an addition to the work being done by the subdivisions contractor out there, Single Tree.
Part of the answer to your question too, Commissioner Frower, is this curb and gutter on the north side of the road will help control runoff. So that in the end, by having curb and gutter out there with low points identified and accommodated, you don't get the water just casting off into the grassy areas adjacent to the church where it historically has been. The road will be wider too than it historically was too, so you're generating more runoff. So we could always say no and not do this, but then you run the risk of that water freeze thawing, softening the ground, vehicle tires driving on it while it's soft. Basically, damage happening to that asphalt right there that the curb and gutter will provide that protection against and control that runoff water.
I get it, I'm good.
And I guess just to complete, the money would come from budget items that were already allocated. Shifting around some of the costs from other projects or just projects that we had money from. So it's not, we're not asking for any different money than what's already been allocated.
Did the church pay for the improvements in front of the seminary?
Yeah, they did.
Have we asked them to pay for this?
I reached out to them and talked to them. And they asked, well, what's the final version of this frontage look like? So it would have curb and gutter and a pathway, a 10-foot pathway is kind of what's identified in the general plan.
In the road or inside the curb?
It would be, the pathway would be behind the curb
Okay.
where the trees are right
Okay.
now. And I said, I don't want to cut down trees to see a pathway right now, but let's just do the curb. And so I thought since we were doing all that curb for the person on the south, I felt like it seemed odd to make them pay.
Well, I
curb
paid
on
for the
there.
seminary portion.
And that was with a new building. Yeah, that's
I don't know, it's
typically
those
where I see
thousand.
development. Yeah. So in the future with the pathway, that would be their undertaking.
Okay, what's the second part?
Second part, I'm gonna let Chad.
So the second part of this is we've had the new sewer line go down 2200 south and the contractors pretty much disrupted that whole road. Through the construction, we found that there was about 4 inches of road base under the asphalt, which is not very much. We felt at the position that it is right now, it'd be good to go in and, bring that roadway up, the remainder of what the contractor has to do, bring the remainder of the roadway up to a county standard so that we have a good road going down there. That's a portion, one of it. And the second portion is we've kind of had this on our impact fee plan of doing the intersection down there at 4700 West and 2200 is, being able to have a left turn and a right turn and be able to get the flow of traffic through there quite a bit better.
The left turn and the right turn on which road?
So on 2200, so there's a left turn on to 4700 and a right dedicated lane turning right onto 4700. Just you see his left turn lanes, they'll back up quite a ways.
It's still a 2-lane road they're turning onto.
Right.
It is. Part of this to think about, commissioners, ever since the high school's been open, this road has technically been shut down.
I know.
And so the minute it's paved and turned back open, you're gonna probably see a significant increase of students using this road. This was one of our fears all along of the high school coming along, is how that's gonna work out, what the traffic patterns are gonna develop into. And so this is kind of why we're looking at this. Well, the road was significantly impacted with the construction of the subdivision of the sewer. It's gotta go back. Our thought was put it back the way it should be, what we would hold everybody to, the standard that we would hold others to.
And this is more of kind of a discussion to get an idea of how you'd like us to proceed on that, if that's something, an interest that you would like us to do, or just continue, have them patch it back the way it is and hope that it lasts.
You don't sound like that's the choice that you want us to do.
It's not our preference, not our recommendation, commissioners, but we understand, it's easy for us to recommend. We don't have to. We spend the money you make available to us. How's that?
And that is a nice thing too. I mean, there is funds in the budget, what was
Yeah.
budgeted for 2200 south to possibly cover these costs, so.
we had money set aside to actually just to design these turn pockets at some of these intersections around the school. This would actually pay to build one.
So how much we talking about for this one?
We'd use that money instead of for design to construct the turn pockets.
And this is impact fee money.
This is impact fee money. We've had this in our budget all along to do these
Pockets would be
projects.
impact fee, correct? The
Yeah.
other would be the regular. So keep in mind, this is preliminary.
You got it.
This is just an idea of what I came up with of what we would assume that the cost might be. I mean, like Ash said, until we can actually get in and work with the contractor and see what the amounts are, these are just kind of going up some tonnage and stuff, but then you can see down at the bottom, we're looking at about $120,000 but that would be for the full road.
That's.
3 inches of
that's-
asphalt, 6
Okay.
inches of base, or 8 inches of base, 6 inches of pit run on that roadway for the whole road. So it'd be a
So this
portion of
doesn't
that.
include the turn pockets?
That doesn't include the total amount of turn pockets. I think I just had that amount in there for the road straight. So the turn pockets would be additional, just what, 100 foot there at the end.
Yeah, 20 to 30,000 to do the turn pockets.
And keep in mind too, this wouldn't be our full costs. Some of this would be the developer or contractor out there working in the roadway as well, so.
With their work impacted the existing roads, so we're having them help pay for a portion of them.
Yeah, so, I mean, I hate having that asphalt out there with 4 inches of base.
Correct.
So explain to me again, how we ended up with a road with 4 inch when our minimum should be 8.
So I can't probably answer that all the way, Commissioner. I can answer what I've come in contact with and learned from others and can assume that that's what happened here, but as our roads department kind of gets funds sometimes and it's on an old dirt road, they'll go just lay down asphalt over top of what's there and not really excavate it out and rebuild it all the way. But I mean, we're talking about probably late 80s.
So,
maybe, that
okay.
this would-
All right, that answered my,
So this goes back to
that
the
answered my
same,
question.
the same explanation Commissioner Harvey
Yeah.
alluded to the previous
Yeah.
meeting a couple
What
of
you're,
days ago.
what you're telling me is it wouldn't happen in today's world.
No,
Okay.
no. It's what developed over time.
Yeah, okay.
Our fear's just with the amount of traffic that we might see on this road is it's gonna.
That's gonna be a busy road, I think.
Correct. We feel it's best to get it built up now than to have it go downhill and redo the whole thing later on, so.
Commissioner Harvey?
No more comments for me, Madam Chair, thank you.
Well, what are your thoughts on the 120?
I hate to, I'm good.
And we'll be able to get more
the
exact
curb?
prices for you to come back, you know, if that's the way you'd like to proceed, we can get some better quantities and amounts and bring them back for your final.
I would also like to see you include the turn pockets, because if we're gonna go to the trouble of bringing this up to standard, then what? And we see that in the future,
Yeah, correct.
we ought to be entertaining that.
Great.
But just to clarify, you're not asking for any more money in your budget
No.
because you had money for these various, so I believe this specific project, we originally budgeted at 250,000. The original bid came in at what, 130?
Yeah, for this section, it was about 120 for
Hundred and
that.
twenty, yeah, so the increase
Schedule.
for the other 30, 35, I'll round yours to 35 plus yours, with the money we already have in the budget. It shouldn't exceed what was already allocated in the previous budget for
Right.
this road.
But we might exceed that if we just start talking about the turn pockets.
Turn pockets were a non-separate project as well in that.
Yeah, but they were
Kind of-
budgeted,
Kind of
No,
two
they were?
different.
they
They
were
were.
budgeted, yes.
What wasn't budgeted for was rebuilding the
Mhm.
existing road in between the turn pockets, up to standard.
But
Does
we're
that make
saving
sense?
enough from the
Right.
original budget to cover that.
Yeah,
Okay, okay. I'm okay with this. I would like to see those numbers too, though. I mean,
okay.
sure this up, but also the numbers on the turn pockets. I don't know why we wouldn't do that at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, we agree. We just wanted to, before we got too
Mhm.
far down this road, make sure this is the direction you wanted. us
And we
to go.
appreciate
Well, it can be a
Okay.
lot of work,
Yeah,
us and the
I know.
contractor,
Yeah.
so.
I know. Okay. All right,
Perfect.
thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner.
Some of you are still in here for item 8, discussion regarding sewer fees and budget. Chad,
Yep.
Gary, Sean, Scott, and John.
So luckily, we've got a two-part to this as well, so we've got, Really pretty easy. So we got the budget that Scott and Josh and myself have sat down and kind of gone through and kind of hashed that out. And then we've also got our municipal service planning program that we go through and kind of come and give you an update every year on it and submit that to the state. But I think we'll go through real quick with Scott. We've kind of hashed out the ways I look at it, the way Scott looks at it, and he does the wizardry and comes up with an amount that we're looking at raising our monthly fee. Of course, Central Weaver raises their fee every July 1st. So in this year, I believe it was about a 6% increase on it. Anything else I need to add, Scott, or?
No, Commissioner, if you wouldn't mind making that full screen, maybe it's a little bit, so it's a little bigger and easier to see, and I can make mine bigger as well.
I can't see it.
Have that button?
I don't know if
It's up at the top where it says view,
oh,
and then down the very bottom option.
thank you.
There we go. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll say.
I
Okay.
didn't know that.
So Central Weaver Sewer is passing along, I'll scroll out to this side, they're passing along a 6% increase this year. The way our fee ordinance is written is we'll charge you $12 and I believe it's $12.95
Yep, have it right.
plus whatever Central Weaver Sewer charges us. So that's the way our ordinance is. And so what I did is I backed out Central Weaver Sewer from these numbers so you can see just what our costs are. So you can see what we need to add to Central Weaver Sewer. So
Yeah.
we went through from 2017 through 2024. We just figured out, okay, what do we actually spend to repair and maintain this system? This is all Lower Valley. We backed out what we pay Central Weaver Sewer. So that's that line there. So you can see how much it costs us on average to maintain the sewer systems in the Lower Valley. So then what we do to that is we add, okay, how much do we need for repair and replacement? So Chad goes through and he looks and he says, okay, we've got 309 manholes, we've got 7,200 feet of pipe plus asphalt over that pipe, and then we estimate a cost, and then we estimate how long of a life this is gonna have, and then figure out how much we should be saving per year. Divide that by the number of connections and basically say, okay, each for repairs and operations, we should be collecting $8.23 per connection. And for this repair and replacement fund, another $8.38, or a total of $16 to cover the costs. Plus, we add $1.66 for county administration. That's just every overhead admin that I can't tie exactly to a specific project. So we should be charging $18.28 per connection per month. We're charging $12.95. We're proposing to go up $1.20 to $14.15. That's not the full amount. We're trying to do this in increments so that we get caught up over time as opposed to a big massive increase all at once. So that would be a 9.3% change or $1.20 per month in addition to what Central Weaver Sewer is charging, which is another $1.86 per month. So we're just trying to balance charging the customers too much money at once. So we're trying to step this up over time to collect closer to what it's actually costing us without having a huge sticker shock. So why did we pick $1.20? Because judgment, we thought, well, maybe that's about the upper limits of what we could do without really causing havoc. But we could have easily said $1.15 or 75 cents or $1.50, right? That's just we pulled that number out of the air. We could go and justify all the way up to 1828, and we're saying, well, that's just a big increase. If we did 9% plus Central Weaver Sewer 6%. So that's kind of what we're proposing here is we'd like to do $1.20, but we realize, kind of like our previous discussion with the surveyors, that there's other considerations besides just cost recovery.
Scott, when's the last time you guys did an increase?
Is it 2 or 3 years ago?
I think we at least looked at it. We try to look at it about every year, but
Yeah.
it's probably been maybe 2 years since we did the last
Since
increase.
we actually did an increase, it's been at least 2 years.
I mean, Central Weaver does their increase every year, obviously, and it always goes up, but I don't think we've done anything for 2
Now,
years.
last year, we just passed along Central Weaver's increase because it was a larger increase.
Commissioner Harvey.
You scroll here.
Oh, boy.
I don't know which way that means. So you want me to go up to the top?
Look
Okay,
at this. Look at this little number. Since 2021, Central Weaver fees have about doubled.
they are increasing rapidly, yes. But also the connections are increasing, so that's not just them raising their fee. We've been adding more and more homes out there.
That could be the.
So you look at our revenues, or you know,
Number.
yeah.
Neil Baruby.
I'll be here.
Okay,
Okay,
So that's the question, commissioners. Are you comfortable with us going up $1.20?
I am.
We would time this to do the same as Central Weaver Sewer's increase.
I'd like to see another 50 cents even. I'd like to accelerate those steps even quicker.
I was gonna suggest $1.50. Which is not quite your 50 cents. I just, if. You know, I understand we wanna take a while to catch up, but if we continue to try to catch up and we're not even getting our increase, we're never gonna catch up.
Yep.
So I look, and again, for 30 cents. I don't know,
It was $1.50?
I'm okay at the dollar.
Okay, $1.50.
there we go.
Okay, that'll be a $3.36 increase per month for connection.
Perfect. Then maybe we ought to look at annually, just put this on a regular schedule.
Yeah.
Annual basis rather than skip a year, cause if we, every time we skip a year, we go farther in the hole.
Oh.
Well, we
that's right.
had this conversation, but essentially Weaver Sewer passed along a big increase.
Yeah.
And so we decided we were gonna hold off.
Yeah,
on ours.
And I don't know if that's necessarily the right thing to do, because if they're having an increase of any size, that's the time to.
I
come
don't
in and
disagree,
try to
because we
catch
really
up.
don't wanna get behind, because then, like you say, then we have to do bigger increases just to catch up.
All that's gonna do is put us in a hole.
Well, it's the right thing to do.
The other thing too, so LMSA is having some discussion about taking these lines over in the long term. Right now, we're working on west of the river, but it is LMSA's goal to take on anything in the unincorporated at some point in time. And to incentivize that, which would be great for the county if LMSA took on all those lines. LMSA is not gonna wanna be in the hole $3 or $4 per account, because we're gonna have to come in and charge them
Yeah.
that. In order for the numbers for us to make it fly. So
Which would be a big increase at one time.
it will be a huge increase at
Cost
one
another
time.
nickel a day to flush the
And-
toilet.
Yeah, so just keep that in mind too, as you guys are doing your number projections, that at some point, the goal is for LMSA to take over these
Yeah.
lines. And the only way they can do that is at market rate.
I don't know if Sean likes that.
I'm
too.
happy to have LMSA take it over now. We'll give them a good price.
I would have to check how much he likes the sewer.
Yeah.
Well,
I think
that's-
the hardest
that's
thing,
negotiable. It's negotiable right now. We're going into that
It's
business.
kind of the hardest thing with the numbers that I've been projecting to Scott is too, is your inflation of your materials that has gone up astronomically recently, and so that's kind of the same thing for us right now, is to give them a huge all of a sudden increase, which we're trying to just.
Yes, no, I-
spread out over it.
I get that.
yeah,
So,
Okay, so we'll do $1.50 on top of what Central Weaver Sewers will
there you
start
go.
on July 1st.
Yep.
Okay.
Gotta
There
pay one
were
every
two-
year.
Yep.
There's a
part
part
two-
two,
come back
hold on.
Part two that's really easy. This is more of an information for the commissioners.
No.
Josh was able to do it this year, so.
That Josh.
We're getting somebody that's just gonna be doing all the work for me.
Wow, there's a lot of, there you go.
Recognize Josh.
So,
Material.
Josh,
It's exciting.
will you get with Bahi and talk about paper copies?
Listen, I want to give you the opportunity to take it with you. We're in it.
Holy
we're in it
crap.
forever, so. No, the state has us fill out the survey every year and, really, there's really the 4 points in there. We have about 18 miles of sewer lines. We had an additional 104 new connections last year. We had 0 overflow issues. And we have a total of just under 1,000 connections right now, so.
well, not all those are connected. A lot of those are vacant lots, but
Yeah.
there's that many connections that we have out there, so.
I could hook up.
Yeah, potentially.
Yes, that's kind of like what Scott was saying. I mean, we just had 100 new connections this year, so if we had that in the last 2 years, that's 200 new connections to have that dollar amount go up.
Yep.
Do you guys get charged, does the county get charged an out of district fee for those connections with Central Weaver?
We get charged an out-of-district fee for the ones that are not annexed into the district, and so they're paying a higher rate, which is close to double the amount.
If they're not in it.
If they're not annexed in.
Yeah.
Yep. Try to incentivize them to annex. But
Any questions for Josh?
Yeah.
Not for me. Thanks though for that
You
information.
wanna finish reading that?
I'm gonna
first?
go through this tonight if that's okay.
Absolutely.
And feel free to send us an
Well, look for yes, no, I can do that quick.
Feel free to
Just
reach out if you have
beautiful.
any questions.
Beautiful.
It is beautiful.
The idea is just to give you as a commission an idea of what the system's like. I mean, our system's operating really well. I mean, of course, it's fairly new too, right?
Well, we got our Josh, we got a Josh.
Yeah, we got it going good.
So we keep up on the maintenance on it, camera, and keep them looking at the lines, looking at the preventive maintenance that we need to have and doing good so far.
One thing Josh helps us with is he's very good at just spot checking stuff. Just the other day, we found a manhole that had a significant leak that was just repaired in the last week.
Just today.
Just today,
Oh.
which that particular manhole ultimately fed down into our lift station. So these are good things to be catching,
Yeah,
so
also,
that we're not seeing undue wear and tear on fairly new infrastructure that we have. So it's, yeah, we have a Josh, but the great thing is Josh helps us catch stuff before it really becomes a problem later on down the road.
Great work.
I like that, Mary, thanks,
Amen.
but I should say also, I think I noticed the numbers, but I think Chad's one actually saw the problem, found that problem, so.
Well,
so I do have
But
a
it's
question
okay.
if I might,
Yeah,
Madam
sure.
Chair. So of the 967, let's just call it 1,000, how many of those would be, just an estimate would be Lower Valley versus Upper Valley? And then what happens January 1 when we don't have any responsibility for the Upper Valley? Do you have a,
Good question. I've got that stuff downstairs for sure. I could give you the exact numbers, but
well,
you're probably looking right around the maybe 150 to 200 range for the upper valley versus what's in the lower valley, the remainder.
yeah, I just know on building inspections, we're running about 1/3 versus 2/3 here. I didn't know if it was about the same.
Yeah.
10 to
you're
15%,
Right around
probably.
150 units up there.
And then I'm assuming whether they hire us to do that, I mean, those lines have to be taken care of.
Mhm.
It's not like they're gonna be able to just go look the other way, right? So you got your, I would say, make sure you have your cost
Yeah,
in hand.
Yeah,
Because they will come hat in hand next December, maybe before that. And let's have real numbers. Because, you know, we're subsidizing now.
yeah.
I don't
we're not
think,
gonna subsidize when they make a city.
yeah, I don't think lower value, even though we're gonna be subsidizing a couple things like small roads that the legislature threw on us. I don't wanna subsidize stuff that we have an alternative.
Nope.
So we actually have
Personal
separate
opinion.
funds set up for Upper Valley, Radford Hills and Crimson Ridge,
Yeah.
which is the Pineview West, and then the Lower Valley. So
Right.
we actually keep those funds separate.
Yeah.
So there's separate rates for each one of those.
Right.
So at the end of the year, we had 424 connections in the Lower Valley. We had 49 in the Upper Valley. That's not part of that Pineview West. And then we had 37, that's the Radford Hills. So, I mean, those systems together, all the Upper Valley together is only 20% of everything that's
So
done.
it's only 20%.
80% of it is out
Okay.
west, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we have those broken down. We've got the amount of lengths of sewer manhole connections and everything all broken
Great,
out already.
good.
So
Okay, sounds like you're on top of it.
We'll need that. Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate
I
it.
think one thing with that, I mean, for this, we do just submit this through the state, so it kind of needs an approval through the commission as approving that. We've met with you essentially and gone through it with you. So I don't know if it needs to be anything official, but when we submit it to the state, it says has it gone before the commission for approval.
Yep.
So
Chris, what are your thoughts on that? Does this need to go to an actual commission meeting?
To be approved?
Is the work session enough?
So what exactly is the,
it's a municipal wastewater planning program through the state that they have us go through and review the sewer system and give kind of report to the commission.
if you're gonna be
And then-
allocating funds, yes, if not. then-
But one of the questions is, has it been approved by the commission?
I believe so, that's how it states it. So.
Well,
If
Did it
it's
say
approved, I'd say yes. If it just says has in it.
Has it been adopted?
Oh, then we
Oh,
would
so
need
probably
to.
do it.
That would be a yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it needs to be adopted. We'll need to put it on the commission agenda.
Okay.
And whether you do it by motion or resolution, I'm not sure. It's, as long as the minutes are clear.
Yeah, if I could ask, is this what you emailed me on Thursday or Friday of last week?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, could I look at it before you submit it? I just want to make sure your numbers match what we presented to our auditors as the total infrastructure. I just want to, because you'd asked for that, and I told you I'd get it to you today. I didn't get it to you in time for this. I apologize. So I just want to make sure our numbers jive so that they were presenting the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I guess.
Well, we are ahead now.
Yes,
Look at that.
Thanks.
We
for
recovered, we recovered.
I know. It's a rough day.
Building inspections are. Can you, discussion. Discussion regarding the recommendation for Building Inspection Division Software Solution Examination and Sean Levinson.
Good afternoon, commissioners.
Afternoon.
Here to present my recommendation for finally a software solutions for the Building Inspections Division. As you know, we started this process probably a year and a half or better ago, where we were pursuing a FEMA grant, which we were in the running for this to occur, and then Washington decided that we're gonna make all that go away. So our grant, basically, we don't know if it's ever gonna come to fruition or not. So with that being said, we decided to reconfigure this a little bit. And look at a solution that allows us to take care of our direct needs currently, but have a system that is buildable and expandable and has potential to ultimately replace Frontier. So if you look at the handouts I gave you there, one about pricing, just get into that quickly. Page 1, you'll see is basically all about just building inspections. So what this would do for us, basically, it was get rid of all of our paper, antiquated, and manual entry systems, all of that. The first year is $140,668. You can see what the breakdown is. This particular contractor is a state contractor, which was great, and you can see that I was able to negotiate even a substantial reduction under the NASPO rate with the particular company. So what they're showing us is they have the ability to be able to curtail and build a system for us, and also give us the ability for it to grow and expand. So for building inspections alone, if we just stayed with the system the way it is right now, so it's $140,668 first year, and then the subsequent years are $666,904, and then $72,49. They have a 5% max increase annually that can occur. Most of them do. When we put our budget into play 2 years ago, we had built in our reoccurring fees to be 65,000. So this is right in line as what we've been budgeting for the past 2 and then rolling it forward. So they're pretty much in line with that. The next page will talk about if we were to add planning and zoning to this, what that rate would look like. It only changed by about 13,000, I believe it was. But cost, everything kind of keeps costing and going up as we go. And then there's an unlimited where everything is included, fire and engineering, all the other entities would come underneath that solution. But what I'm trying to achieve with the budget that we already have in place for 2025, I have X amount of dollars that were put into this, which we're gonna add the grant funds to. And with the fees that I have in there now, I have about 120,000. I have 124,500 that was earmarked for us of software solution. With what they're proposing in this initial part for building inspections alone at 146,668 for the first year, I come out about 16,000 short to make this happen. So with that being said, and then I need to get a few tablets and whatnot, so I'm looking to move forward and looking to find about $20,000 in Scott's budget. And he and I have talked a little bit about this as we go along. I've mentioned it to Commissioner Farrar. We need to do this. We can't wait anymore. I think we're so close with the numbers that we already have in the budget for a one-time cost. I would recommend and very much like to move forward with this, get it before the attorneys, and then get the formal contract to us if the attorneys don't have any, thing that they see. But again, then they'll re-review that contract before we bring it to you. Again, like I said, they are a NASPO state contractor. They have done things for DAES. They have done some other things throughout the state, so they do have a presence. Part of their implementation and building is broken down in the document that I gave you regarding the company, and in that one right here, yes. So with that, It basically will give you a breakdown showing implementation, different things, how it will occur. And of course, all these companies require the county to be able to provide the time that we need to give them what they need to build the system. You know, IT, GIS, our people, as far as getting them what they need to convert and bring that data over to that new system. I've talked to IT, obviously Quinn has been all about getting this done, and because he just can't give us what we need. And some of his people have talked about what we're gonna think about doing is taking all of our data from 2020 forward. We would want to drag into this new solution. Anything prior to 2020, they'll take and archive what we have in our public works system, which will no longer be supported at the end of this year. I got a contact a couple months ago from Lisa Tringham saying basically, what do you guys want to do? We are not going to renew this. You know, they're concerned about their firewall and different things. And it is such an old antiquated system. We're finally, so most of our permits are satisfied and closed within the last 5 years. You know, past that, we have some that are open, but those are the ones that go into non-compliance. When we need to, we'll go into that database to handle basically those. Questions?
Well, this is something Stan's been, seems like it's been over a year now.
3 years.
So it's so needed.
But, yeah, I mean, I think this is one of those, you know, programs we need to take us into the future. And it doesn't appear that building permits are gonna go away. In fact,
We're up, like I told you.
yeah,
in our
so we're
meeting.
up actually a little bit. Now, they'll all be out west. I'm assuming we may or may not contract for the Upper Valley, but regardless, I think it's needed. I know Stan's done his homework. He's investigated basically, not just, you know, this is not the only one we've looked at.
We've looked at them at all into the spectrum, from your small companies.
Yeah, so,
Which basically only do X, and then to your big, I won't throw names out there as I can. Like Oracle, we go from like an iWorks to an Oracle, which are on both ends. I think we go from something that is half of this solution, but with half of the performance, half of the actual, what it can do, to extremely robust companies, which we can't afford. But with this, again, because it's modular based, it's something that we can add to,
Yeah,
and they're willing
that's
to
important.
work with us on that, because what's going to happen, and I feel, once we get this up and running, if you guys say, okay, go ahead, is it'll get built. All other entities, you know, planning, engineering, health, fire, they'll be users. They'll be able to come into the system, do the reviews, do their thing and use it, just like we go into Frontier. But as opposed to Frontier being basically a whiteboard, a digital whiteboard, this will have a lot more things that are built into that solution, from receipting to scheduling of inspections. We're gonna save so much time finally getting this done with our staff.
Right.
It's.
anyway, I'm in favor of it. We've talked about this, for a long time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
And very patiently, everybody was, and like I say, I really wanted to see the grant come through, and if we get an email one day that says, grants are going again or whatever, at this point now, it's almost like we could pursue it and then back fund it or whatever.
so what we're looking at is basically between what we need to, it's not in budget right now, is about 20 grand.
Yeah, 20 to 30, I would
So-
say. And I have a contingency fund.
Yeah.
Within that municipal services fund that we set
That's
money
what
in
we
as part of the budget, and that's where we would pull
So,
it.
yeah, I don't see this requires a budget change.
Yes, no.
Okay,
So anyway,
questions?
No questions. Can the users use a cell phone to help schedule and do the?
Our inspectors will get tablets, obviously, so we have something that we can see out there along with, cases that'll help protect them, but the contractors will get, their inspection report is gonna be emailed to them directly.
Yeah.
Whoever is the user that is putting their correct information.
So
as
they
part of
can
the
access
project,
all of it.
They can access.
Oh,
But
that's
you're
so
asking, can they schedule appointments mobily?
Yeah.
They can they'll be able to get into the system and schedule or make inspection requests. It'll be up to us on how we want to regulate that.
I'd love to do that. That's great.
It's like when you go to the ball game and you want to pick a seat or your theater, right? And it's gonna tell you what's available.
Yeah.
Because we schedule AM, PM, so the contractor may
Great.
want it this, he's gonna have to go to this
Happy with
date.
that, Stan.
So we're gonna have, those are the kind of things that we're gonna see here.
Yeah, it becomes a little more user friendly.
Aye.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, 100%. Aye.
Aye,
Attaboy, Stan.
looks like you got a.
Attaboy, Stan.
Well,
Thank you.
I'm glad we finally, we don't have to talk about this.
We don't have to talk about
You know, here's the thing.
patience is a virtue.
If we
but I
end up
mean-
contracting with any other municipality,
You want this?
just saying, we need to make sure that,
Mhm.
Stan, this is important. We contract with any other municipality, I wanna make sure that the cost of this stuff gets passed on.
Mhm.
This is not just the money, we only pay a guy this, with all the software and the housing of the guys and
Yeah,
the cars and cost of all this needs to make sure we appropriate.
we'll work with Scott to make sure that number is accounted for.
Yeah.
All we need is a little overhead figure,
Yeah.
Exactly.
manpower plus overhead, this
Yeah.
becomes part of our overhead.
Yeah, that's exactly what
Now
I'm
we'll-
thinking.
Yeah,
We will, we're gonna have a reoccurring cost that we haven't had in the past.
Yeah.
That's always gonna have to be budgeted for that, so we know what that's gonna be. And again, if performance is there and the solution really works and works well, then like I say, we're probably gonna be making recommendations or I want planning and engineering, and if I'd be looking at this going like, this thing is really, really
Yeah.
awesome. And be able to now say,
Yeah.
okay, here's how we do this.
yeah, I'd like to see, this is our test trial, to see if we can bring in planning and engineering into this
Yes.
thing. Which if we
Yeah.
can increase our efficiency and
Mhm.
customer friendliness in those two areas, which, we
Mhm.
Yep.
take a little heat,
Yeah, absolutely.
we come out winners.
There you go.
And just one more thing I'll just add to that really quick. When I met with, as far as this particular company uses Stripe for its receipting and payment system, we met with Linnell to go over this because, in talking with her, they don't want too many systems. After meeting with the company, Linnell was comfortable with what they're doing because to integrate their payment system, it'd be almost another $100,000. It was like 94 or something. So again, Linnell says this is okay. She knows Stripe, it does work, so on and so forth, but we wanted to make sure before we even came to you that it was gonna be okay, so we didn't have to include that cost.
Chicken dinner.
There we go.
Great. Thank you. Thank you
All
so
right.
much. All right, commissioners,
Motion to adjourn.
even though we're 7 minutes early? Okay, glad
Want to
seven.
keep talking?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carried. We are adjourned.
Rob White.